ولا تنسوا زيارة حساب مبادرة تنوير وحساب إدارة استقطاب ورعاية الموهوبين وحساب الدكتورة حياة للحصول على المزيد من المعلومات والاستفادة من المهارات المهمة برؤية المملكة 2030. ونرحب بدكتورة هيا ونشكرها على حضورها. دكتورة هيا، هل لديك كلمة لتلقيها؟
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. نحيي الحضور
وعليكم
جميعا،
السلام.
نحيي دكتورة حياة. نورتينا دكتورة، نورتي جامعة جدة، نورتي إدارة استقطاب ورعاية الموهوبين، نورتي إدارة تنوير. يعني شاكرين لاستجابتك معنا، وإن شاء الله يا ربي يعني اليوم تكون محاضرة غنية. الطلبة في انتظارك أكيد جميعا. أنا بس حابة كنت أرحب في حضرتك، وفعلا نورتينا، وشكرا لي وقتك اللي أعطيتينا إياه. تفضلي دكتورة، معاكي، لو تحبي تبدأ الآن.
شكرا دكتورة هي، شكرا منتهى صراحة. شرف لي أنا بالأول وإنكم اخترتوني أكون من ضمن المبادرة هذه صراحة. يعني أسعدتوني، وإن شاء الله أقدر أقدم شيء يفيد طلابنا ويفيد الجميع ويكون ثري بمعلومات عن البحث الطبي.
أكيد دكتورة، يعطيك العافية. احنا في انتظارك لو تحبي تشاركي ملف معين أو.
أوكي، أنا بس قاعدة أحاول إني أشارك البرزنتيشن حقي، بس لحظة. تمام كذا؟
ايوه تمام، واضحة الشاشة.
طيب حلو. معلش يمكن السلايدز حتكون بالإنجليزي، بس يعني we will talk ونتكلم عربي إنجليزي يعني وناخذ راحتنا بما إنه الحضور كله عربي إن شاء الله. فأول شيء أبغى أقول أهلا وسهلا بكل الحضور، طلاب و faculty members و يعني أي all the guests الموجودين، وإن شاء الله أقدر أقدم لكم شيء يعني إن شاء الله يفيدكم. فالليلة إن شاء الله I will be talking about clinical research from conception to execution. Basically, it's about where do you start with your clinical research, how do you conduct your work, and how do you finalize it. فقبل لا أبدأ في clinical research itself, let's talk a little bit of history of clinical research and the milestones in the evolution of clinical research. So clinical research goes back to the 500 BC, and it started from dietary therapy and evolved to eventually having drugs therapy. The first clinical trial described in the 18th century, with efforts made for refining the design and statistical methods. And then the changes happened in regulatory and ethics later in the 1900s. More in details here. So we have the pre-James Lind era, which is from the 500s BC to the 1500s. So that's basically the world's first clinical trial recorded or reported, and it was in the Bible, and it was done by a king, and he was more of a military leader, and he tried a trial on a dietary therapy. He had his men, he wanted to try having his men eat only meat and wine. However, there were a few people from their royal blood who refused to have that, and they only wanted to eat lugum and more of a vegetarian diet. However, after 10 days of this diet, of this trial, they noticed that the vegetarian group were more nourished and more fit to serve the king. So they eventually changed the diet. So basically, this is the first clinical trial reported in the world. Then comes the Avicenna, which is almost 500 years after, and he just had more of a trial that goes with. He continued his trial also this way, and it was more of. Sorry, تسمعوني؟ Can you hear me, guys?
إيه دكتورة معاك.
Okay, طيب تمام. وبعدين there comes the Ambrose Perry another 500 later, and that was an accidental trial, and it happened on a sailing on the board of a sailing military sailing ship, and he was going through. There's not enough boiling oil treatment that he had for the wounded soldiers, so he had to come up with an alternative treatment, and it was made of egg yolk and roses oil and turpentine. And after a few days, he noticed that the wounded who were treated with the alternative treatment, they healed much better and faster than the original treatment. So that's basically how clinical trials were started, and but it's not reported, it's not structured, it's not controlled, it's nothing. It was just give and take and trial, and then comes this scurvy trial. I'm not sure if you heard of it, but does anyone know what a scurvy disease is? Okay, بما إنه أسئلة and participation is by the end of the lecture. So scurvy is basically the deficiency of vitamin C. What happened, this was the first physician who applied a control trial, and he planned a trial for scurvy for this condition. And he had 12 patients, and he tried 2 participants eating sugary food only versus 2 participants with elixir of vitriol, and then another 2 participants with vinegar, another 2 participants with seawater, and then finally another 2 participants who had only orange and lemon. And then after 6 days, he found that the group of the 2 patients who had orange and lemon were mostly nourished and fit for duty. And then almost a century later, or like 300 years later, there comes the introduction of placebo. And it's only a name or an epithet given to any medicine that is more to please than benefit the patient. And it was given for 13 patients at first who were looking for a treatment for rheumatism by a physician called Austin Flint in the 1863. And then finally, here comes the first randomized control trial that was done in the UK for pulmonary tuberculosis, where the physicians had limited supply from the US for treatment of tuberculosis, and they had to design and implement an RCT with an alternative treatments that they had. However, there has always been an ethical framework. Let's say the oath of all medical practitioners, they all had an oath to help patients and human beings. However, this oath was not enough, especially in the World War II. We all know what kind of crucial and brutal experiments they have done on human subjects. And then comes the Nuremberg Code, where the informed consent form were introduced. However, they still thought that was not enough to protect the human subjects. And then comes the Helsinki Declaration, and that was done by the Medical Association to protect the human subject in clinical research. But in the beginning of the 1900s, as a parallel to all of that, the FDA was always an ethical framework. However, with time and nowadays, it became a law enforcement organization where any new drug, any new device has to get the FDA approval to be marketed. So here comes, what is the importance of clinical research? Why is it so important that we do clinical research and we experiment and we discover? I'd like to start with the definition of research. It is a systematic investigation with human participants to establish facts or principles or to collect information on a subject, whether the subject was a patient or a new drug or a new device. So it's basically to collect enough information and to make it evidence-based that this is what is needed for this treatment. Who does this research? It's always a team. It's always a team of researchers consisting of a principal investigator, physicians, nurses, coordinators, and any other healthcare professionals. What are the risks of conducting clinical research? There is time commitment and frequent drawing of blood, since blood testing is the most common clinical research tool. And then there's the unknown side effects of a new drug, or there could be no immediate benefit for the patient itself. But however, the benefits, on the other hand, it would be the participant will receive additional care and attention from the research team. They will have access to experimental and new treatments, and knowing that the knowledge gained may benefit others in the future. Why is it important? To learn about the cause of disease and its effects on the patient, find effective treatment to improve quality of life for those affected, and to determine if a medicine used for one condition could benefit another condition. So we have different types of research, treatment research. That would be, we could be studying a new medical approach or pathway, a prevention or preventative research. For example, that would be the lifestyle change for diabetic patients. Diagnostic research for disorder identification. We have screening for condition detection. That would be for, like, for example, prostate cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer. There is always screening protocol for these conditions. It could be research to improve quality of life, and this is mostly done for patients with chronic illnesses. Genetic studies, and then epidemiological studies, like patterns, prevalence, and so on. And then we also know there is a clinical trials where there is a new intervention. And of course, everybody is aware now that the most known clinical trial coming now is the vaccine against COVID. Types of study designs. We have the systematic reviews and meta-analysis, for example. We have descriptive. These are the most common study designs that people actually use. So we have the reviews, we have descriptive, such as qualitative studies or surveys, or we call it cross-sectional. And then there's the analytical or the quantitative studies. There's the experimental, randomized control trials, and then we also have the observational, cohort, cross-sectional, case control, retrospective, all of these studies. The main components of any study can be summarized in an acronym, in one acronym, which is PICO. So P stands for patient, population, or a problem. I is an intervention. Some would actually spell it with an E, so it's an exposure. C would be the comparison group, and O is the outcome. So here, from conception to execution. How do we start our research project and where do we end it? First of all, we started with identifying the research question. Then we complete a thorough literature review. We plan our method. We work with a collaborative and supportive team. We write our findings and then we publish it. And in the coming slides, we will see why these steps are important and how do we actually do them. So why every single step of these 6 steps is important to accomplish and achieve a successful research. When you identify your question, the question is the core of your work. It will be the guide throughout your research. And you will know if your question is, you have to determine if it is urgent or important or beneficial, and what other sub-questions that you have for this work. Literature review is important because it will prevent duplication of work. It will provide foundation knowledge on the topic. It will identify gaps and conflicts in previous studies. For example, you have a question in mind and you would start your literature review and then you find that your question has already been answered with the exact same population, exact same intervention, and exact same comparison group and outcome. So basically you will be duplicating, no one. But however, in the other research that already has been done, you can find gaps and you can find questions and you can find recommendations for future work. So you can actually tweak or change and modify your question and to cover this gap. Literature review also will help you identify need for additional research and place your own research within the context of existing literature. Why is it important to plan your research and your methods? You could define what tasks need to be completed, how and when. You can state who is responsible for each task and provide mechanism to monitor and track progress. You can gain commitment from stakeholders. By stakeholders, I also mean your teammates. You will have a defined contingency plan for all eventualities. If you did not have enough of participants, you will have another idea or another plan to actually recruit more participants, to have a strong, with high confidence intervals study. And then you will also define the communication channels between you and your teammates, and also between the team and the research participants. Why is teamwork important? It can help you achieve your goal more efficiently. The workload can be evenly and fairly distributed between the team members. Tasks can be delegated to those with the most suitable skill set, and it gets you engaged and motivated rather than just ignored and dismissed in the team. Writing your finding is important as the result is where you report the findings of your study based upon the methodology that you have created and you have implemented for this research. The act of articulating the results helps you to understand the problem from within, to break it into pieces, and to view the research problem from various perspectives. And you will be eventually able to discuss it whether you plan to publish it or not, or discuss it in a conference, discuss it amongst your colleagues and peers as well. Finally, publishing your results. It is not a mandatory step, but it's always recommended to do it, because with this, you contribute to knowledge, you increase your discoverability, you get peer-reviewed, and this will make the work done even stronger. The dissemination and impact of your work on others. It will advance your career, And it will also prevent duplication of effort for future work by your peers or by others in the same region. Now let's get to how you actually do it. How to develop the right question. So first of all, you have to choose an interesting general topic. For example, I'm interested in obesity and diabetes. I cannot go and write a paper or do a research in cardiology. I wouldn't understand it and I will find it difficult and I will lose interest. I have to do some preliminary research on diabetes, for example, just to understand it, to see where we are, to see how we want to do it, to see how lifestyle change program, for example, can help diabetic patients. And then start asking questions. What is the new technology? What is the new treatments? What are the new therapies done to treat diabetic patients? How can we help type 2 diabetic actually maintain their A1C results on a quarterly basis, and so on. There you can actually come up with your question, or let's say also a preliminary question, and then you can evaluate it. Is this question clear? Is it focused? Is it complex? And then once you have decided on your question and you found that this is a question reasonable and it has not been answered in the literature, then you begin your research. And here comes the literature review. I believe that a lot of people think that the literature review is boring, but to me, I feel it is the beginning of a new journey. I find it exciting, I find it challenging, and I find it that, okay, let me find something where nobody has done before. And you will always find someone who did something similar to what you plan to do, but there's always a way to find a gap in that literature. So you have to select the databases you will use to conduct your research. For example, for medical background, you will always need PubMed, Cochrane, Medline, Embase, CNAL for nursing. These are standard databases that we all use for clinical research. You conduct your searches and find the literature. Keep track of your research of your search. So you've done your search on PubMed, and then you minimize the search to whatever is relative to your work. You keep it, and then you move to Embase, and then you compare it to the first search, and you remove all the duplicates, and so on. You review the abstract of search studies carefully. Definitely, when you search a topic on PubMed, you can get tens and hundreds of articles that most of them will not be related to yours, and most of them will be kind of different and asking different question, and you can get that by scanning the abstract. In the abstract, you will find the goal, objective of this search. You will find the methods that they have used, the sample size, the sample that were recruited, and how did they conclude this work. And then you write down the searches you conducted in each database so that you may duplicate them if you need to later. Use the bibliography or the references and references of search studies you find to locate others. This is a very important tip, and it will help a lot. Once you find an article that is very, very relative to what you're trying to do, check the references at the end. It will be very useful for you to find things that weren't really indexed or published, or for some reason did not come up in your search in these databases. Use RefWorks to keep track of your search citation. I have been told that RefWorks is a miracle and it makes your life much, much easier. However, personally, I'd rather to go with a manual method of entering my citations. Call me old-fashioned, but I like it this way. And then you start reviewing the literature, reading all the articles that you summarized, and start reading the literature. Here comes the methodology. Before doing anything, you need to obtain ethical approval. Because if your work was not approved by your ethical entity, like, for example, the IRB of your institution, your work will not be reported. Your work will be dismissed because you cannot actually start the study without the ethical approval, especially when there are human participants. Like a review paper, it can pass, but wherever there's a human participant, you cannot do it without the ethical approval. You have to choose a methodology and a study design that will answer your question best. And you can figure this part out from your literature review, and you can see which method will actually help you best to answer your question. Define your peak, your population, your intervention, your comparison group, and your outcome. You have to create a time frame so you can actually keep track of your work and monitor your tasks and monitor your progress. There are many tools to use with time frame, and the most famous one is Gantt chart. Pilot your methodology. Like, for example, if you had a survey that you want to distribute to a certain group of people, you can take a sample of 10 to 15 participants and pilot the survey on them and get feedback. So before you actually distribute the survey, you can do the edits and take the comments and points that came out in the pilot before distributing this. Organize the data collection. So decide whether you're going to do it manually or electronically, retrospectively or prospectively. Create your database. And then after filling your database and collecting all your data, analyze your data. Now, here is a really, really big challenge where it comes data analysis, as not all of us have statistical skills. And finding by statistician is like finding إبرة في قامة قش, basically. Discuss your findings and comparing it with existing literature. When it comes to the discussion part, you have to benchmark your findings. See, does it go along with the literature like everybody else, or is there anything different? And if there is anything different, why is it different? What happened differently? Why your results are different than the literature? And then finally, draw your conclusion and what has happened and what do you benefit from this piece of work. How to ensure effective teamwork? First of all, as a principal investigator, you have to clarify the roles, responsibilities, and accountabilities. You have to set clear goals for everyone, for them, like a main goal for the research project itself, and other goals for each member of the team. Communicate with each other. Communication is a very powerful tool. If was used correctly, you can achieve great results. Make decisions together. If you are the principal investigator and you made a decision for something, you have to share it with them. You cannot just do it and not share it with them. They are still your team. They are still working. You need their participation. You need their contribution and their agreement so they can do the work with you. Respect and accept diversity. when it comes to writing your findings and how to make it like academically appropriate. First of all, it is never too late to start. You can start writing your paper from the moment you started your literature review. You can start writing the background, the introduction from the moment you start doing the literature. Once you have received the IRB approval, the ethics approval, you can start writing the methods. You don't need to wait till the end of the project. Be systematic. Don't jump from one section to another. Look at similar papers. There is also no need to reinvent the wheel with your work. Look at what others have done. Make yours special in a way, but all research papers, all reports will all be similar. In the beginning, do not worry about the length of the draft. However, by the end of your work, before submission, you will cut off most of it. And then be aware of technical issues. It is very important, and it can add to you or decrease the value of your work, grammar, spelling, and punctuation. Finally, how to publish your work. First of all, you have to choose the right journal. You cannot publish a diabetes article in a cardiology journal. It will get rejected instantly anyways. You have to read and follow all the guidelines given by the chosen journal. And when you start writing your manuscript, you have to make it clear, concise, focused, and definitely grammatically correct. You have to review it and edit, then review it again and edit. As a matter of fact, you will keep reviewing and editing until the moment you submit your paper. Share it with your peers. You will always have a new perspective and new input from someone who did not do the work with you. So they might have questions that will help you address something differently. After your peers' feedback, review it again and edit, and make sure that your title is attractive. And definitely shorten your paper as much as you can, as people prefer to read a shorter paper than a longer one. We can add something to publication. We have different types of publications. There's the original research or original article or journal article. It's different from one journal to another. It is the most common one. It is suitable for many different fields and types of study. And it is kind of lengthy. It goes in an average of 5,000 words. And it could be difficult to be accepted in journals. However, it is the original work and it is the complete work of what you have done. So never ever give up submission. If not accepted in one, you go to the second, to the 10th, to the 15th, it doesn't matter. Then we have a short report or a letter, which is a shorter form of an original research. And this is mostly useful for time-sensitive topics. Like, for example, again, with COVID here, we found publications within Marhaba. You still with me? I think I lost you. I was on hold for a few minutes.
Yes.
معك دكتورة.
when consult still types of publications.
أيوه.
Right. Okay. So again, we were talking about the short report or letter, and as I said, it's useful for time-sensitive topics. And I was about to say an example of COVID. We found publications done. COVID started in China in December 2019, just a couple of months after we started finding publications, and it was mostly letters to editor. And the importance of this is that to share the knowledge and whatever they have discovered as soon as possible with the rest of the world. So this is this is why short reports and letter is important kind of publication. We have also review articles. They're different. We have systematic review, meta-analysis, narrative review. It's comprehensive, and it's a comprehensive summary of research on a topic, certain topic that you would like to know more about. And then finally, we have a case study. It's reports a specific instance, phenomena, case, and this kind of publication a lot of physicians go to because of a rare disease or a rare condition they have seen and they have treated, and it's good for them to share it with others, with their peers. So a new way of treatment that could help another person somewhere else in the world. So I have come to a conclusion of this presentation. I hope it was informative, and yeah, I'm more than welcome to ask any question right now.
شكرا لك دكتورة حياة. حضور الأعزاء، إذا عندكم أي أسئلة ممكن تكتبوها في الشات. هل عندكم أي أسئلة؟
Wallahi, this is either the lecture was not of your interest or it was very clear, and I hope it's the latter.
لا والله يعطيك العافية دكتورة، شكله ما في أسئلة، ما شاء الله غطيتي كل شيء.
طب الحمد لله، الحمد لله.
حاليا
You
ححط
are
لكم
more than
رابط.
welcome, علا.
هرسل لكم رابط التسجيل في الشات، من إنكم كلكم تسجلوا عشان تحصلوا على الشهادة.
And اللي سأل يبغى البرزنتيشن and I have no problem with sharing it. However, يعني حجم 26 ميجا بايت. So I'll figure out a way وأرسلها لكم إن شاء الله. critical appraisal. قولي لي منتهى. طيب عندنا هنا بدور. You asked for critical appraisal. يعني إن شاء الله, why not? If not a course or a lecture, إن شاء الله I will write something about it and I will share it with you. You are most welcome بدور. أخ حسين غندورة، ما في مشكلة. اللي تحتاجه تبغى تعرف عنه أكثر بالعربي، ما عندك أي مشكلة، ارسل لي إيميل وإن شاء الله أنا أرد عليك باللي تحتاجه. الفرق بين البحث والورقة العلمية. الورقة العلمية is basically writing up your project. البحث هو نفسه أنت تقدري تسوي بحث وتقدري تشوفي a new، يعني أنت عندك مثلا if you're working في مستشفى ولا working في أي مكان، تبغي تشوفي هل هذا الشيء اللي أنت قاعدة تسويه مفيد للناس ولا لا. You can do it. That's a search by itself. That's a research study. However, you can write it up and publish it, or you can prefer not to. And publication is not only papers, it's also conferences or posters. That's also considered type of publication. فالورقة العلمية هي أساساً بحث، بس مو كل بحث ممكن ينكتب ورقة علمية. عبد الملك عياشي، يعني هل البكالوريوس باك جراوند علمي بمعنى آخر باك جراوند طبي؟ يعني I can talk from my experience. طلاب البكالوريوس يعطوهم من 3 إلى 4 شهور عشان يعملوا بحث، وهذا غالباً حيكون either survey, cross-sectional, retrospective أو review. ما حتقدر تعمل prospective study or clinical trial طبعاً، لأنه هذه مسألة تأخذ وقت طويل. أساساً for you to get an ethical approval هذه لحالها تأخذ 1 إلى 2 minimum. يعني for example for me لما I was doing ال PhD الدكتوراه في Ireland 9 شهور إلين جاني approval for me to get to start my work. for بكالوريوس، طلاب بكالوريوس أيا كان 3 إلى 4 شهور can actually get a really good review paper or retrospective paper. عمر، هل يؤثر تاريخ جمع البيانات على وقت نشر البحث؟ يعني for example, if you are doing a project على COVID, we prefer إنك you publish it as soon as possible. But if you are doing a retrospective study for patients أنت شفتهم من قبل, for patients موجودين عندك في الداتابيس من قبل, and you just wanna do an epidemiological study which is a prevalence of a certain disease ولا whatever, لا ما تفرق. يعني عادي. I have done a paper 2 years ago and it was just published الشهر اللي فات. It's alright. عبد الملك، صيدلة سنة 3. You have a lot of opportunities and chances to do really good research. أهلا وسهلا. العفو، ما سويت شيء. How do you choose the right research question and avoid wasting time on a question that might eventually turn out repetitive? رزان، أنت شكلك دخلتي ال presentation a little bit late. طيب, I can tell you exactly how to do it. First of all, you have to choose a topic that is interesting to you. عشان, for example, you will be interested to read the literature for it. And then you should read about the topic that you want to research. And a lot of articles will add at the end of their work future plans or future work, suggestions, recommendations for future work. You might try to find, you can find another article that is similar to your question, من ناحية population من ناحية intervention and the comparison group and the outcome. However, the population is done in a different ethnic group or in a different country or in different community. That is something that you will find as a gap, and you can do your work in this way. It will need a lot of reading من البداية until you find the right question that you want. And once you find the question and formulate it, try to search again for it. You will always find similar work, but not necessarily exactly the same. You might have a bigger sample size, you might have a smaller sample size, you might have a different kind of sample. So there's always a way to make your work unique. Did I answer your question, Razan? You are more than welcome. And if you would like any help in anything, you've got my email. More than happy to answer any question you have.
عندكم أسئلة أخرى؟ في أحد حابب يسأل الدكتورة؟
الله يعافيكم.
طيب وبكذا يكون انتهينا لقاء اليوم. كما هو معتاد من فريق تنوير، نرجو أن تكون المعلومات تكون ذات فائدة عظيمة لمستقبلكم الباهر. نشكر الدكتورة حياة المشقاب لحضورها الليلة ومساعدة مجتمع الطلاب العلم بمعرفتها المذهلة. عسى الله أن يرفع قدرها، وشكرا لحضوركم الكريم. مع تنوير ننير السماء بالنجوم وليبقى الأثر لملايين السنين. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.